All right, we're going to move into a very exciting fireside chat on the topic from task to talent, the new AI human collaboration paradigm. I'd like to introduce our panelists to you, and as they come forward, please give them a big round of applause, starting with Alosh Denny, AI engineer, Discern Security. Joining Alosh on this panel is also Krishna, Head People and Culture, India, Avalara. And moderating this session is Beena Sarkar.
Okay, so we are here and very interesting topic that we have. Task to talent, right? And very interesting juncture that we are in. We've seen AI automate tasks, and that has a great implication on how we look at talent as well. So I'll just give a quick introduction about everybody over here. Myself, Beena Sarkar, I work with ServiceNow. I've been in the AI space for the past 7 years, so gone through the entire ropes. I'm also associated with the Women for Ethical AI movement with UNESCO. So bias, ethics, all of that is of great interest to me. So I'm very, very delighted to be joined by Priya. She has about 3 decades of experience in the human side, especially nurturing leadership. And we are at a very interesting juncture over here, as I mentioned. And Alosh is a seasoned AI engineer. He calls AI the love of his life. And has been featured in the OpenAI leadership dashboard. One of the lead engineers over there who's made it to that leadership board in terms of token usage. So I'll kick off the discussion, right? Priya, I'll just start off with you, right? And when we spoke earlier and we connected earlier, you mentioned that you are inspired by Brené Brown's philosophy, right, of the leadership paradox, leading with vulnerability yet strength. In this day and age where we had first COVID, and now since 2022 we had ChatGPT coming in. How have you seen this play out in coaching leaders in this change?
Thanks, Beena. A pleasure to be on this panel, I think, with such stalwarts. So I think, for me, just take a step back when it was, like 2020. I think the world was very different, right? COVID made us rethink the way we live, work, interact. And then we thought, okay, we figured this out. And then comes along AI, which again made us rethink the way we live, work, and interact, right? And I think what that's done for everyone, and more so for leaders, is they have had like almost a shifting landscape, right? They've not had something which is constant. And as leaders, typically it's expected that you have all the answers. Right? I mean, people come to you saying, hey, you're a leader, you should have figured this out. I think with AI, what that's done is everybody is on the similar level playing ground. And that's what I love about Brené Brown is she says, hey, vulnerability is a strength because it gives you the opportunity and saying, hey, let's experiment together, right? I don't have all the answers. I might be a leader, but I don't have the answers. Let's figure it out together, and let's have the courage, actually, to say, hey, even if we fail, it's okay. It's okay. Fine. The fact that you're showing up, the fact that you're making a, intentional effort, I think that's good. So to me, leaders need to have that mindset shift in their minds, right? That create that kind of psychological safety for your teams, saying, AI is not something to be feared. It's something which we are all learning together. We'll figure it out. Yes, it will make us push ourselves to our limits. It will make us reimagine our task automation versus more of capabilities. But leaders who are able to create that space for their teams are the ones who are, can fuel or have innovative teams. I mean, I truly believe that vulnerability is actually the strength that actually will fuel innovation. If you're not vulnerable as a leader, innovation is a distant dream.
Oh, that's a very good point. So Alosh, picking up with what Priya mentioned, you've been, as you mentioned very clearly to me, you've seen the whole space heat up with, relief. When you speak to folks who are working on the automation space as well as who are working on their daily tasks, you've seen a lot of relief happen as a result of large language models coming into picture. But there is also fear. But have you seen that change and move in the direction in the past 3 years towards what Priya mentioned? It's being both vulnerable as well as taking people along with that change.
Right. So, good afternoon. And again, this is an amazing opportunity to be among a diverse audience. So, coming to your question, Veena, I think the fear of obsolescence has just grown over the past 3 years since the rise of AI. And most people come to the point where they feel like they would be replaced entirely by AI. But that's not the case. And there's a very strong example of this. So a couple of years back, a Swedish company named Klarna decided to lay off over 2/3 of their workforce in the hopes that they could replace it with AI. And this is a customer care company, by the way. So they hooked on to automating calls using AI, but it backfired. You know why? Because humans have this sort of touch that AI cannot bring. Liveliness, likeness, and emotional and nuance. That's something that AI still hasn't been able to replicate. And turns out, their customer service just went down, hit rock bottom, and Klarna had to reinstate every single employee. So at first, most companies think that AI can automate everything, but then there are a lot of things such as design, thinking, creativity that AI cannot fully automate. Secondly, coming to the point that now that AI has come into the picture, it has taken over most of the menacing tasks like coding and writing. So for most people, their work has now been, I'd say, upgraded from writing menial code to more of design thinking or more of a design strategy. That takes a lot of your mind, and you can focus on creativity and on progress. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. So this kind of rounds off the discussion that we started off with. What we thought was fear has now moved towards understanding and empathy using this technology. In our discussion, when we were just passing notes, Alosh had also mentioned that as part of coding, that's also changing, and even Meta is now allowing assessments with AI, like an open book test. So in that case, how would you assess a good coder in this new era?
I think the word I would look for and Meta is looking for is resourcefulness, right? As a coder or as a programmer, how would you manage a project or how would you build something out? Now, up until 2022, assessments were completely proctored by actual humans. But now that AI is into the picture, Meta has turned over the tables. You can now use AI to complete your assessments or write code for you. Now, what does that mean? What is Meta actually asking here? Companies now expect you to be resourceful with AI. So given a project, they're actually assessing how creative can you be? What is your design strategy? Given these tools or given a team, how would you use AI in the most perfect way to build something out? And I think this is what most companies are paving the path towards.
Right. So just to add on to that, so it's more about prototyping versus writing everything with AI, because it's just to clarify that.
Exactly.
Okay. Great. Thanks for that perspective, Alush. So, Priya, in your case, you mentioned that Avalar is looking at re-architecting its workflows using large language models. So, taking from what he's mentioned on resourcefulness, etc., if you give an example of how that thought process has been implemented at your organization, and it's a people organization, right? So, a perspective on that, please.
No, thanks. No, so just to add to that, I think even in college, which seems quite many ages back, I used to fear open book exams, honestly, because I knew that it's so easy to just do rote and regurgitate what you have done in an exam which is closed book. But when it's an open book, it really makes you think hard and deep. And that's where the true value comes in. So I completely understand what you're saying, Alosh, is that open book exams and AI is making us do that, right? So within Avalara, I mean, just to give an example, right? We are basically a tax automation research company, and we do a lot of content research on tax. And as you all must be aware, tax is a very complicated thing. So many different rules, regulations, jurisdictions. And we have a set of researchers who actually were going through different, like, tens and thousands of websites, citations, figuring it out, collating all of that manually. And was working fine, and that's what we were putting it into our product, right? A product to keep it updated. But then the US tariff scene happened, right? Where literally, not just every day, in a day there were multiple changes happening, and it was very difficult to keep track of it, right? So that's when it made us realize that if we have to scale, right, we can't be doing the same things manually the way we are, right? So that's when we started looking at how to use AI to kind of scrape through various databases, citations, and all of that, and collate it for the researcher. But when we also realized one thing, which brings me to the point that you said, is as a researcher, while earlier they were spending more time doing this collation, now they had to make sense of that data and ensure that the right data is being fed into the product at the right way. It's being ingested in the right manner, because that's the judgment call where we make the difference. Because every tax change is not necessarily impacting every customer, right? So I think that's the change that we did, and I think that's really helped, because it reduced a lot of the manual work, but it still ensured that as humans, we are using our judgment, the high value judgment, and adding value to why the customers pay us what they pay us, is for that extra knowledge, and that the way that we interpret those laws and citations and validating, that's what was the difference. So that was a great thing. And to the other point, wherein how it made us really rethink, it was a big journey for people to make that change within the organization, right? Because earlier they were used to just doing things. Now it was coming to them. Now they had to actually put their mind into it, and that's the difference between having an open book and a closed book, right?
So the key word I'm taking out of this from both of you is resourcefulness. There is a very interesting, and that there's one word in Hindi that's called tajurba, that's experience. So that resourcefulness comes from learning by doing. So it's not like you don't know how to code, or you do not know your processes very well. In fact, that's how you're able to point out or give direction to the tools that you are using. So resourcefulness is the key ask that you're looking at when you are measuring a workflow, in your case. And in this case, if you're evaluating an engineer. So that's what my takeaway from this is. I'll move on to the next topic. It's something that's very close to my mind since I work with the Women for Ethical AI South Asia chapter. It's regarding ethics. Again, when we were discussing earlier, we've had this chat earlier with Priya and Alosh. So one thing that crept in, she was saying that we use large language models, especially leaders, as a observational critique. How is it that I can better myself? So my question to Priya that time was, how are you ensuring that while it's criticizing you, there's no bias that's coming in? Because all of your data sets inherently are built with only a certain amount of information. It's not captured most of humanity. So how is it that you're handling that in your leadership conversations and as part of the whole observational critic part?
So I think the first thing is AI is, it's just your thinking partner. It's not the decision maker, right? I mean, it's like how you talk to your friend. You kind of, you will maybe talk to them about everything and anything. They might have an opinion, they might have a judgment, but you end up doing what you want to do, right? So end of the day, your judgment, what you have worked with is what should guide. It'll help you, I mean, and that's what I have personally seen, is it helps you sometimes uncover your own unconscious biases, right? Sometimes you think of things in a certain way, and AI helps you challenge that thought process. Not to say that whether it's right or wrong, but it just helps you then make a much more informed decision for yourself. But the decision making still has to lie with the individual. And I think that's something which I think as leaders, it's important for us to be able to kind of constantly have that reminder, not just for us, but even for our teams. And if I were to put it in a larger context as an enterprise, so in Avalara, we have given the, everybody has access to ChatGPT, everybody is expected to use NA10 to make agentic AI workflows for the individual. Now, people would say, oh my God, that's too much power in everybody's hand, right? Like, how do you control that? So what we did is, even before getting to that, what we said, hey, if we need to give this toy, so to say, in everybody's hand, how do we ensure that the playground is safe, right? And for that is where we created this whole, we call it Alpha, which is Avalara's LLM framework for agentic AI. And the whole tenet of that is, how are we making a responsible AI framework? So we spent a lot of time in terms of ensuring it is fair. It's going to have a lot of customer data because people will query that. So how do we ensure across different continents, countries where there are such strong privacy laws, how do we ensure that's protected? How do we ensure there's integrity? And end of the day, none of the decision points were given to the agentic AI. It's always a human in the loop which is taking the decision. So, for example, like when I was telling you earlier, we're a tax automation company. So it's very easy to say, hey, okay, just calculate the tax and just file it, right? I mean, it's so easy to build that agent. But we didn't do that. We said, yes, you can calculate all the taxes, but an individual will review it, and they will be the ones who will certify and say, hey, whether it makes sense to file it, right? So end of the day, what we are saying is the accountability is still with a human, not the agent.
That's very, very important over here. I think, as Alosh mentioned earlier, Klarna tried to put the accountability on an LLM, and it resulted in a disaster. And I think learning these past 3 years have shown that you really cannot remove the human from the loop. And that's where that brings me to Alosh. And very interestingly, while he loves AI, very recently he's moved into the ethics space. And Amanda Askell is your hero, so to speak. And you mentioned that she has a philosopher, and she's a philosopher, and she's been hired by Anthropic. So that's what intrigued you, and that's when you deep dove into ethics and AI. As an AI engineer, and just listening to what Priya mentioned, what is it that every architect must think of when they are building out a solution?
So coming to this one person, Amanda Askell. She is a philosopher at Anthropic. And you might be wondering, why would Anthropic, a very large AI company, be employing a philosopher, right? And it comes to one simple quote: LLMs are stochastic parrots. Yes. Rote memorization. They just spit out what they've been trained on.
Perfect.
And there comes a question, right? LLMs have been trained on how to predict, but not how to think. Reasoning is not thinking, it's predicting. And that's where ethics and bias comes into place, because LLMs will spit out whatever they've been trained on, whether it's regular text, harmful data, anything. They will learn on whatever has been given. And there comes a question on, if AI can be trained on deceptive methods or deceptive information, how would the dystopian future look like? And that's where Amanda Askell, the philosopher, steps in, and she heads an entire team that works on making the AI better, training it to make more better decisions that are not wrong and for the betterment of humanity. Now, coming to Beena's question. So for someone who's using AI, and as Priya had mentioned earlier, AI should be your co-pilot, your partner, your navigator. And that, again, pushes you into a corner where you can leave most of the menial work of coding to the AI, and it forces you to think decisively, to make decisions. So I think as humans in the coming years, we'd mostly be involved in blueprinting architectures, writing down plans, how things should move forward, just creating an entire map, and leaving the rest of the work to be handled or automated by AI.
Oh, perfect. So that's a great, ending, so to speak. So just wrapping this entire discussion up. So I'll start off with you, Alosh. A few years from now, we are moving that discussion from task automation to talent augmentation, right? With large language models and AI in general. So you mentioned blueprint, but can you predict what's going to be the next? How do you see, and what's the hope that you have for humanity in general and the workforce? Besides blueprint.
I think, yeah, besides blueprinting, I think most of us would be involved in just making major decisions. I think we'd reach like an inflection point where we'd only be really good at making decisions because we know that AI cannot do that perfectly well for us. They can guide us, but then we are the pilots in all of this.
Okay, moving to pilot mode from grunt mode, great. And over to you.
No, so obviously the HR in me has the more human side of it, right? So I think it's really going to make us reimagine the way we look at careers. I think careers no longer will be just static job descriptions. I think it'll really make all of us, we can move from anything. It'll be more like career latticing, right? Like you can be here today. AI is going to help us become better at learning, being able to get better skills faster. And I think that'll help us move more across different domains, different skills faster, rather than just being in our silos. So I think the career path, the job descriptions, it's no longer going to be the hard skills, but the soft skills, to your point, right? Like how okay are you with experimentation? How okay are you with, reimagining what you did yesterday was not the way to be doing it. We need to change, right? And I think just, kind of pushing ourselves to think differently. I think that's going to be the future. So the hope for me is as humans, we will actually become more intelligent rather than just doing the grunt work. And the other thing which is very close to my heart, and I've actually seen this happening in just the last 6 to 8 months that we've started using AI in the organization because we're an AI first company, people are actually collaborating. They are no longer sitting in their silos because it was so easy to sit in your silo and create a process and implement it. But now, with the fact that we are having to do this agentic AI, I can no longer just sit in my silo and design something. I have to work with you. I have to work with you because it is a ecosystem, right? And that is really making people go outside, collaborate with each other because the work is getting done. I mean, what was taking maybe 10 minutes to do is taking 10 seconds. But it's not that the 9-minute 50 seconds is free. That is what is being used for collaboration. So I think actually workplace might become actually more human.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
That's a great note to end this. So resourcefulness, human in the loop, co-piloting, with large language models or AI, and collaboration, an increase in collaboration. That's where we see this movement taking us, especially with this journey of the past 3 years that we have seen, with AI coming in with everybody. Thank you so much. I think we are at the close of our discussion. Thank you to my panelists for lovely insights.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Beena. It was fantastic.